Thank you for joining us today. My name is Zach Alexander, and I'm our Senior Content Manager here at High Touch. I'll be kind of hosting us today this morning, so if the slides move too fast, too slow, it seems slightly off, it's probably my fault, so thank you in advance for your patience as we get started. Today's presentation is going to be all about some real-world guidance for businesses and IT leaders on managing risks and opportunities of AI adoption. So I know Andrew and Jason will keep things pretty down to earth and conversational. If it's something I can understand, I hope that you can understand it too. So just before we get started, a couple things to keep in mind. Please keep microphones muted just to kind of minimize some background noise that happens. You know, we just talked about the sirens, things like that happen. If you have questions at any time, feel free to drop them in the Zoom chat. We'll have some time at the end to go through those. And then we are recording today's session. We'll share that with you in the slides once we wrap things up. To kick us off, I'm pretty excited to introduce our speakers here. We have Jason Fenoglio, who's our Director of Information Security, and Andrew Kahn, who's our Regional Director of Technology Solutions. Jason and Andrew both bring hands-on experience helping businesses navigate technology challenges and strengthen their security posture. So I will hand everything off to Jason.
Thanks, Zach. Just like Zach said, I'm the Director of Information Security here at High Touch. My background, I've been in IT most of my career. I've got about 30 years of experience touching every aspect of IT, starting back on the help desk. So a lot of experience in different fields. I've worked at Koch Industries, Boeing, into a VAR, and then I've worked in High Touch where I've had the option or had the opportunity to work with software development and the managed service provider industry. I have a master's degree from Georgia Tech, and I am fortunate to work with their team as well, teaching with their master's program on security incident response. I'm all about security. It's in everything. So I feel like I need to pay it back to help companies evolve their security posture.
Well, I'm Andrew Kahn. I'm the Regional Director of Technology Solutions for High Touch Technologies. I've been at High Touch going on 4 years. I'm more customer service focused with the technology side and our managed services and professional services group. So I will run a lot of our conversations kind of like what our clients have been asking from a client perspective or company, what you should be looking for. So as we start off, we want to make this very interactive. So if you do have questions, please put them in the chats. There will be a couple polls that we go through on the slides. Just give us a baseline of where you guys currently are at with AI, data posture, or anything like that. So we will start off with a poll. If you can, just give us an idea of what your current usage of AI, or do you know your current usage of AI?
I promise not to answer this time.
All right, everyone should see the poll now.
And everyone should see the poll. Basically, it's asking, are you currently using some form of AI, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., in your business? Or do you know if someone's using it in your business?
Ready? Go ahead and that and share what we've got going on.
All
right, 90%.
Thank you for that. That gives a good idea of what everyone is currently using.
So I'd like to kick off. Let's move that next slide. Why AI can't wait. So a lot of you have already started this journey with 90% of you saying yes. So you know right now that AI is no longer optional. It's already embedded in everything that you run in your business, from Copilot being automatically installed on your Windows devices, using Zoom, all the way to Grammarly, looking at your text as you type it and correcting it. It's seeing all that data that you're typing out. almost to the level of a hacker keylogger. You're generally sending information to a cloud based AI, and it's reading all of that and helping you adjust your words. So it's becoming standard practice, and it helps with efficiency and gives you advantages in your everyday work. There's a common saying, it's kind of beaten like a dead horse. You won't lose your job to AI, but you may lose it to someone who knows how to use AI. A lot of people kind of scoff at that word, but I feel like it rings true. It's very similar to the late 90s, early 2000s of people using Google or Yahoo for looking up their information, as opposed to going to libraries or reading the newspaper. In fact, a lot of initial IT techs built their careers off Googling with their Google foo. So it's very important to realize that A is nothing to be scared of. It's a very powerful tool, but it requires a lot of careful planning and execution.
I'd say too, the other thing, Jason, is like for the 10% that said no, you're probably utilizing it without realizing it. I mean, Google searching now, like Jason brought up, it's really AI search in some cases because they're utilizing Gemini to provide those prompts and responses back of what you're asking for. So in a way, you're more than likely already utilizing AI and just not realizing it.
Correct. Yes, and a lot of your employees are probably using it as well, and you may not even know about it. And that's one of the risks of using AI. People in your organization, I guarantee, are using some sort of AI in their environment. Like I mentioned, Grammarly. It doesn't go as far as in depth as Copilot would, but if you haven't gone through and locked down sensitive files, done audit checks on your access controls, they may be sharing files that they don't realize are being shared on a public LLM. A well-crafted prompt could possibly uncover data that is basically it's a privileged information within the organization. Accidental reveals could actually cause a compliance risk, especially if you're under the HIPAA compliance, GDPR, PCI, credit card data, PII, PHI, personal health information could be accidentally shared without you knowing. So you need to know, especially if you are under any sort of compliance risk, that your employees could be sharing data that they're not supposed to, and they're not going to the right steps. But it's important to consult with those people to be able to allow them to use it the right way. You don't want them to be scared of using it. Just reaching out and basically working with them to understand the risks that they pose.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is just, we'll lead into this a lot, and you'll hear it a lot from us. It's just a lot of it is education. I mean, it's going to be used one way or the other, but they just need to understand the risk of using it. Like Jason said, if you have certain files out there, like PII or, salary data, if someone prompted it well enough and you don't know that it's out there, AI could find that information, and then you could have internal struggles or battles of people saying, well, this person makes this much, why don't I? Right. So those are things that we want to make sure that you guys are looking at, as not just what kind of information you're storing, but how they're stored and who has access to them.
And Andrew actually brings up a really good point. That was actually a real world story that we've heard just in our experience, where the index had actually gone through and indexed a file that was open to everyone, and it ended up being salary data. And someone that shouldn't have access to it was able to just randomly ask the question, and Copilot brought it back to that person. So it's a major insider risk. So more cybersecurity risks about AI. Let's talk about the attack surface. There are a lot of dangers with your employees using this data, like I mentioned, where they're uploading data that's not been obfuscated or redacted, and well-crafted prompts could basically bring that data out to someone that they shouldn't have it. So it's important to go through and cover all your entry points. Make sure you have that education out there for your employees. One thing I'd like to mention too, that there's recent examples of the backend infrastructure with Scale AI, McDonald's, and DeepSeek, basically opening that learning data out to the world because the backend was misconfigured. There were APIs that basically had open access, and anybody could go in and grab that data that had personally identifiable information in it, PII. So it's important whenever you're planning for some sort of AI implementation with your environment that you cover all your bases. It's a well thought out infrastructure implementation. There's also vulnerabilities that we're just now realizing that could be attacked. The Copilot Echo leak, where a zero-click prompt could be sent to a user, and they essentially can pull any data that was accessible to that user. So that's where you get down to least privilege, access control, making sure that you only have access to the things you need whenever you're using an AI application.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is just like the expanded attack surface side is the threat actors and bad actors, they're utilizing AI as well. So in the events of them coming into your organization and compromising your environment, they could utilize the AI tools to start searching and scanning for information. So that's the other important things to keep in mind about knowing where your data is and who has access to it is because it's not just from an internal threat, but you have the external threat factors as well.
Correct. And we don't know what has been revealed yet. There could be vulnerabilities out there with AI currently in other AI models with ChatGPT or Anthropic. They're just suddenly starting to come to life, and threat actors are working around the clock trying to find these ways in order to get to that data, because it does give them access to a lot of data within a corporate environment.
Yep. So we're gonna do another poll right here. Just wanting an idea of, what your data hygiene is.
Poll coming up.
Coming. Should see it now.
So you should have gotten a poll asking, how would you describe your organization's current approach to data hygiene and file access audits? And this is kind of thing where we see that, you start asking yourself questions of certain things, you're starting to really think about, are you actually doing this or not? And if you're not doing it, how do we get this incorporated?
Shared with you guys.
All right, so looks like we got a pretty good widespread. So 40% of you, regularly audit files and keep permissions up to date, which is good. Occasionally reviewing permissions, but not on a fixed schedule. Then rarely, and then not sure, don't have visibility. Okay.
Yep, I'm impressed. Those are high numbers on the things you should be doing. So that's kudos to you that voted for that.
So again, no more security by obscurity. I mean, like we've been kind of going through and educating and touting, right? Don't assume that any file is safe just because it's tucked away. I mean, we like to hide files just because, we're thinking that just nesting it a whole bunch down folders and stuff like that is going to keep it safe because it's not right at the top, it's unseen, but that's not really security. You're just providing a way for something to be found because you don't want others to find it. Something will find it, right? So we want to make sure that you are doing what needs to be done, auditing regular file accesses, understanding who has file accesses and how old you have files. I mean, there's files out there that you probably don't need anymore, but it's a safety net. But from compliance reasons and aspect of it, yeah, you do have to keep certain files for their length of time and period. But once they're there, you should have policies to get them removed, data loss prevention policies, archival policies, or anything like that. So if you don't have those in place, that's something also to look at.
Yeah, there are a considerable amount of small to medium businesses that just haven't even thought about going back and cleaning up their data. It's it's the fact that when you bring AI in, your old data becomes new again. And if you're truly wanting to become efficient and have efficient results, then it's important to move any of that data that you do not want in your analytics out, so it can give you valid responses that can basically make it effective for your organization. So auditing and cleaning up your permissions. So I want to start with these next few slides. This is basically security fundamentals. Whenever I talk about auditing and cleaning up the data life cycle of your files, these are in common frameworks that have been around for years. The Center of Information Security, CIS, they've placed these controls out there, and they've adjusted them over the years, but relatively they stay about the same. And when you talk about the safeguard 3 of your data protection, classifying your data, creating data retention for the data that you need to keep, such as HIPAA or Sarbanes-Oxley, data that has to be available for audit if need be. And then removing data if you don't need it. Continuing that data lifecycle over the years can certainly help you with an AI journey, but it can just help you generally as an IT organization. You want to make sure that you're cleaning it up, and it does save you on storage costs, power costs, compute costs, because effectively you're just going to keep growing if you don't go back and clean that data up. So another thing I'd like to bring up is making sure that you go through a full access review. We have tools in place now in our organization where we run through our entire Microsoft 365 environment, and we establish who has access to what and how long has it been since one person has accessed the file. Do they really need to have access to it anymore? It helps with permissive scope creep. One thing I'd like to bring up, and if you have Microsoft 365, this is going to be a freebie for you, but with SharePoint Online and OneDrive, the sharing default is set to everyone in the organization. So if you are sharing something through OneDrive, it effectively will share it to that person, and as long as they have the same identity within your tenant, that person has access to it too. So even though you're sharing that link to it, you could run a prompt through Copilot, and it'll actually bring up the information for that data if your information addresses what's in that file. I just had a prompt when we first started using Copilot where it cited a presentation that one of our VPs had created in their presentation, their PowerPoint. And I knew nothing about this file, but it shared it for me, and it told me exactly where the file was, and I could open it. So it's some of those things that you don't realize that are open by default that you have to go back and change.
That's kind of what we mean by the fix any everyone can see everything aspect of it, because Microsoft or any other tools, they're basically the container or the storage, right? They kind of give you the tool to utilize and share and be productive in the environment. But security is still on everyone's job to make sure that their file is secure and access. So that's the aspect of where we say, make sure that everyone can't see everything or can see everything.
And one thing that's great that they just added within SharePoint, there is literally a tick box that you can turn off Copilot indexing for specific document repositories. So at least they're taking that step to help you rein in some of that data that it could be indexing. So least privilege, again, this is a security fundamental, but very vital in an AI journey. You have to make sure that you're only giving the access that's needed for the user at that time. If you have role-based controls already, kudos to you. That is something that people struggle with. They apply single users to certain document libraries or shared folders. They're probably in a department, say if they were in accounting or HR, that folder structure that is specifically for HR or accounting should have a role based on that, and those users should be put in those role groups. The role group should then be applied to those user document repositories. So it's vital that you shift to a role-based control so it makes it easier to rein in those access controls. And again, those are in the framework with CIS and NIST. If you look at the Safeguard 6 and in 3 on NIST, it is a framework that's built in for years that you should employ police privilege. And we see it very often where it's still based on a user base, and that scope creep continues to go whenever that person moves within the company. So assigning data owners. When we're talking about data owners, we want to make sure that we have somebody that oversees everything that is in a document repository or a share file. They're entrusted with allowing people to have access to it, giving them that role-based access. They also go through and ensure that the files that there are needed, anything that you don't need anymore, they pull it out. They entrust themselves with the data lifecycle, and they will enforce the rules and address the issues quickly. Now, that is also clearly defined in NIST and CIS as well. And again, fundamentals. But whenever you go through and do that cleanup, you own the data for that department. You're saving that you're saving the company that total cost of ownership. Again, with power storage and retention costs. So it's vital not only to security, it is for the operational costs for an organization.
Your data steward should be somebody in that department. I mean,
Right.
to IT, IT is always going to see data files as a risk, and they're going to say, we don't need it, right? So if you want the data to be kept there, you definitely want to make sure that your data steward is somebody in that department, org, just so that we can assign it and truly hold accountability to it in those files. But again, like Jason said, it's going to allow you to enforce those rules and make sure that the data stays clean, and you know who has access to it. And then they can validate and audit on who had access and doesn't have access. That'll kind of lead into the next slide about just expiration dates and time.
Yes, so with monitoring access, expiring access to certain data repositories, it's also important to make sure that in certain temporary roles, contractors, short-term projects, if that user does not need to have access to that data, then they should be revoked. That includes access reviews where you're going through at the administrative level to see when people have had access to certain data. If they haven't used it in months or maybe even years, let's look into removing them out of that access role. Nothing should be open indefinitely. So that does bring back the liability of somebody granting access to that user, getting access to that user account, say through an attacker, and getting data that they shouldn't have had access to in the first place. So it is important to do those access reviews and expire people that don't need to have access long term.
I think the other thing to keep in mind too is if you do have your data stored in SharePoint online, Microsoft 365 is the owners or creators of those files, right? You could run into scenarios where if they're no longer there, you offboard them. Those files are still out there. Do they still need to be out there? You might also lose access because if they were actually the creator and they were stored in their OneDrive, right? Their OneDrive goes away and you don't have access to that files anymore. So that kind of also leads back to having the data steward to make sure as you offboard, certain files that you do want to keep are kept and new owners are given that aspect of it. So do make sure you kind of look at your logs, understand who is it, what your timeframes are, and the other side of who has the rights to share those files externally. Because like Jason said, default is everyone has the capability to do that. So data exfiltration without knowing it could be happening.
Yeah, and I think it is important to have more than one owner, especially at the administrative level, maybe at the department level, but also at the administrative level. That's another thing that our tools do is to see who does or what repositories don't have an owner, and give us a report based on that so we can act efficiently.
So as we talked about how you evaluate your AI readiness, right? We've kind of started the approach and kind of beat down that education is part of it. So doing your research, understanding your data workflows, what that means is, where is all your data? Who has access to it? What apps need access to it? And how is it being utilized in your business? Because if you don't know what it's being utilized for, AI is going to figure it out. AI is going to know it, and they're going to start figuring out how operationally to run your business. Now, if you think of it from the aspect of a bad actor coming into your organization and looking at AI, they could ransomware your data. And if you don't pay it because you have backups and you can bring your environment up, that's great. But last year, there was a construction company that went through, they didn't pay the ransom, but the bad actors sold all their data to their competitors. So all their IP and stuff like that have been sent out. And that essentially took them down from their business because now the competitors have their playbook, knew how to operate, and knew how to do what they were doing. But also they lost their trust in their clients because all their client data was out in the world. So that is why it's important to understand, your access controls, who has access, so that exfiltration can't happen.
Yeah, that's one thing that people don't realize is the loss of that brand image. You can lose your trust if you let some of that data come out, because a lot of times there's client data that's in those repositories that they have access to, and then that's why it is important again to ensure that does this repository need to have access to AI? Does it need to be part of the index? So doing those constant reviews can help you. And those of you that are going through CMMC, we have a lot of government contractors in the area. I hope you're looking at your data flows right now, because if you're going to go through a CMMC audit level 1, and then I feel sorry for everybody that's having to go through a level 2. I know that's grueling, but you've got to know where that data, especially your CUI, your controlled unclassified information, you have to know that data flow. It's critically important for you, and a lot of you that are in that realm, you're probably holding off on AI just because it's such a huge risk. It's a risk for people that are under those conditions, but especially for those that are under CMMC and government contracting.
Yeah, so we're gonna do another poll before we go to the next slide, but we're kind of, or as we get to the next slide, we're curious on how many of you currently train your employees around AI, or does your security and awareness training tool provide AI training? So you should have gotten the poll, which best describes your organization's approach with AI training and policies. All right, thank you for that. All right, so 17 have formal policies and training that includes AI risks. 50% have informal discussions, but no more formal policies or training yet. 17%, we don't have anything in place, but plan to address it soon. And 7% haven't discussed this yet, don't know. Okay, thank you for that. That gives us it's pretty much all over the place, but at least some of you are starting the conversations and some of you have the baselines in there. So go ahead and move to the next slide.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me so much. It's there's a lot of input now, and it's such a new field that AI policy is. Where do I put it? There are a lot of tools coming out here lately, but and then getting everybody trained again on AI, they're probably in the planning phase right now, I would say.
I think the other thing about it, if you're not thinking about it, it's really important for you to have some kind of policy in place. I mean, if you don't have policies in place, you're kind of giving free rein to your employees to utilize AI how they see fit, right? Either to do their job better or
Yeah,
to,
and they don't know. I mean, they really don't know what the policy is for their organization. So it's good to establish that. Am I doing something wrong? If you don't set the standard, then you really can't make any sort of corrective action within the organization.
and if you do have them policy in place, it allows you to be able to hold them accountable to certain things because you've educated them that there's a policy there, you've educated them of the risks. If they keep on doing it, that's your way of saying that it's out there. And they can't come back and saying, I don't know anything about this. I was never trained or taught, right? So that's something to keep in mind of being able to hold employees accountable to using the tool the right way. So you definitely want to make sure you're training for your team. One of the things that we do that we love and we've gotten great feedback from our employees is during our town halls. So we have a section that Jason hosts called Security First. We go through that point to allow our team to be educated about current security threats, things that are going on in the real world, what AI is currently doing, and how we see AI going to be utilized. So if you don't do that currently, your town halls, or if you don't have town halls, we recommend, and just having some kind of cadence to where you're bringing security and AI into those discussions.
Yeah, it makes them part of your security team. It's the team culture, that security team culture is very important. Just in general, again, I feel like we're still talking about fundamentals here. I feel like every organization should adopt that, but it's something that will help you whenever you start to adopt AI, practicing that in your company.
Yeah, I think that when you adopt security across the company, people start to understand IT problems aren't just IT problems, right? IT problems are everyone's problem. So how can we help everyone to be better educated and support to allow the business to keep on being productive and growing? Um, I think that's where we need to shift that mentality that, well, it's an IT issue. Let's just send it to IT. Well, it really is an everybody issue.
Correct. And if you bring in the social engineering aspect of, not everything is going to come through a computer. So, um, you know, talking to your employees about, a phone call to your help desk, saying they're so and so, if you don't have a verification path for verifying that's who it is, a second line of communication to that person outside of of the original message, making sure that that person is who they say they are. These are things that you should also employ within your secure culture.
I think that's something really important that you bring up. I just thought about this too, and we talked about this during our prep for this was utilization of deep fake, right? So I'm already cautious all the time because we're in the technology world, so already we're at risk. Every time I get an unknown number call, when I answer short because I'm afraid they're recording my voice on the other side and try to utilize it for bad things.
Yeah, if they don't respond immediately, I just hang up. I usually wait a little bit and get those robocallers.
Yep.
But and more recently, Marco Rubio was just a deep fake. They called foreign heads of state with his face and voice, and they were successful in doing God knows what. So um, it's good to train your team in order to establish those secondary lines of communication, have verification, especially when it comes to proprietary data and any sort of monetary exchange. The accounting team especially needs to have that verification as somewhat of a two-factor verification before you complete transactions.
Yep. So one of the things that we see, what can you do as an organization? What can you do as an employee, or ask? So if you're not one of the decision makers for your company on this webinar, is to ask your business owners, hey, we should do a cybersecurity risk assessment or a audit around AI usage. This allows you to kind of bring to your company the risks that you could be around AI, but also understanding if you do have policies in place for AI or other security insights. So an AI readiness audit is definitely all around, security, education, but also data governance. Because before AI should be used in an organization, you should know where your data is, who has access to it, and who's doing what with your data.
Yeah, one of the great additions to one of our risk assessment tools is its ability to determine if a person is using an AI bot or some sort of AI function, and we can actually pick that up through browser data, and it'll actually tell us how often they use it. So you can make a risk prioritization that, hey, I need to consult with this person even more. I can work back based on usage. And I think it's very powerful data for an organization to be able to have this report and bring in like this group that uses it so often, and I can head off the risk before they do something that's dangerous.
Or even now that, 90% of you said that you're currently utilizing AI, but if you're using it, did you do an audit before you allowed it to be used? If not, it's still a good time to make sure you audit yourselves and see how it's structurally being used and are people using something else than what you've probably already approved.
Great. So what are AI ready organizations doing right now? I think it stems back to, again, going back to beating the dead horse again. People who do fundamental security procedures on a regular basis. This stuff has been around for a very long time. It's just been refined over the years. And bringing AI, there's nothing really new that you're changing here. You need to go in and look at the least privilege access, role-based controls, making sure that you're preventing a lot of those shadow IT risks, or shadow AI risks with reviews, doing risk assessments, constantly testing your organization in order to see, who's using it, where can I consult with them and ensure they're using it the right way. We actually use it in our software dev side, but we go so far as to redact a lot of the data where it's either key-based or it's just removed entirely. And then we get the result back and then apply it to the information for each category. So for crunching numbers, we don't put any of that data in. We have our own enterprise versions of ChatGPT. We use Enterprise Copilot. And we've done this journey ourselves in order to ensure that we are eating our own dog food, as you could say. And also the people that don't have policies in place, again, like I said before, if they don't know that they're doing something wrong, then they'll continue to do it, and they could harm the company later on. Putting AI verbiage in either your acceptable use or information security policy, I think is vital for organizations that are smaller. Larger organizations may actually need to have their own AI policy and AI owners that enforce that policy, because they may deal with GDPR. They need to have specific access to what's going to happen if somebody requests a right to delete data. You need to have specific policy in place to what is my action for that. One thing that just came out recently, Darwin AI created a free tool to where you can build your own AI policy. You can create it fairly quickly, put your company name in and click on all of the frameworks that or compliance frameworks that apply to you. And then you can review it at the end, just like you do with any AI result. You always want to double check. It does hallucinate. You got to make sure that you're providing correct information. But I think it's a great tool to start off, just like with any AI tool. So something good to check out. In fact, I could pop that in the chat here in a little while towards the end.
I think the other thing you say about that too is just everything that we're seeing now, like you mentioned at the beginning, Copilot's kind of being installed everywhere out there, but AI is kind of being pushed down just because it's such a large buzzword now. So Adobe has integrated AI into their application in the fields to make searching easier. So it's part of why we're saying that you need to understand what you're allowing access to, and the policies need to be kind of written out to where you're allowing certain access to make sure you're not holding or leaving your company susceptible to improper AI usage.
And I would pop that out for you guys if you want to check that tool out. So building security-aware cultures, we talked about that. We do that with Town Hall every month. I know that I get more communications from our employees internally. They verify, they check with emails that they're not sure about it. And I get a lot of communications from the employees, and it takes a lot of time, but I'd rather them do that than having to clean up a large mess later on. So I feel like security awareness training is probably the top tier of a security stack. You need to educate your users because they are your weakest link. You can have you can spend tens of thousands of dollars on security controls, but someone from the maintenance team or a receptionist could just let somebody in. They could just click on a link and gain access and move laterally within the system, especially if you haven't put those role-based access controls in place. So it's important to educate everyone from the bottom to the top, and then ensure you have that top buy-in back down. Your leadership should push that security awareness training down and give someone time to be able to talk to your organization. You also need to practice it. We do phishing campaigns every quarter, and it constantly runs. I get messages all the time that, oh, you almost got me, or you got me. And, I kind of consult them on, what they did wrong. Um, you know, why was that link, why should you not have clicked on that link? I'd rather do that in practice, over the real thing happening. And, they are educated on a constant basis. So, again, the security awareness training is absolutely the most important thing that you can do within your organization. And our security awareness training offering actually offers AI email and video phishing training, so they can go through the training and determine where are the red flags, what should I do with this email, or I look at this video, something's not right with it. You can say if it's fake or real. I think it's a great tool, and it's good to have your employees practice that as well.
I think the other thing to keep in mind too, Jason, like misclicks happen not just because they're on the computer reading emails, but a lot of us are on the go. So we're checking our emails on our phone. When you're scrolling through an email because of how it structures on the phone screen, you could potentially just hover over or click on the link inadvertently just because you're trying to scroll up on the message to read it more, right? So those are capabilities where misclicks can happen as well. So it's not just from they're sitting at the computer not reading it thoroughly, but they're just going through their emails and not realizing they've probably already clicked it.
Yep. Often the times when somebody clicks the email within High Touch, it's because they didn't take the time. They were doing something else and they just clicked the email. Email doesn't need to be answered right away. I know that's kind of my personal opinion, but email is such a successful entry point. It's a high percentage attack vector. So taking that time to be able to look at it whenever you're focused on it, I think is very important. So maintaining and monitoring AI systems. So this is something that, again, it's fundamentals. You should be monitoring your critical infrastructure by applying updates, uh, applying patches promptly. A lot of AI tools are SaaS-based, they're software as a service. So um, they should be getting patched by their vendor. But it's important to keep those monitors on the SaaS tools as well. So if you do have data loss prevention auditing, DLP for short, or if you have a SaaS-based SIM that can do integrations to those SaaS providers, they can track the behavior of how users are accessing the files. If someone is accessing a repository they normally don't, then your SIM tool should be able to come back and report that, hey, this is out of the ordinary. It's anomalous. And then have a SOC on the back end to do this while you're sleeping. You got to sleep. So you got to have a 24/7 SOC to be able to monitor that as well. So I believe that having that constant monitoring will also be vitally important to any sort of AI journey that you set out on.
Then we can move to the next slide.
So,
So a couple things on, um, we try to make things easier for our clients, partners, and everything like that. I mean, we have been around for over 40 years, building various different IT aspects of it. But one of the things we wanted to make sure you understand, we're here for education aspects of it. We want to be able to consult you. We want to be able to guide you on your AI journey if you've haven't started it, and if you started your AI journey, we want to be able to kind of help you audit and make sure that you're on the right path with your AI journey and you still have things buttoned up. So if you have questions after this or want more in-depth conversations, or you're looking for a readiness assessment, just reach out to us and we can definitely assist with that.
yeah, I will mention we have tools for everything we've talked about here. We wouldn't have done that without having a solution for you. So We definitely want to help you out with your AI journey. We've been through it. We use it currently, and I think it's saved us a lot of time in our day. And we may actually have some prompt advice or just basic use advice for you as well. So definitely reach out if you have any questions or if you do want to start that journey with us. But it looks like we've got a question out there.
All right, looks like about the deepfake question. So how can organizations help protect employees from reputational risk associated with AI-generated content like synthetic media, especially as these tools become more accessible and even more convincing? It's a good question.
Yeah, I would say with the VO3 that being released, it's pretty impressive. It's almost unbelievable. And I believe the top level to make decent videos, it's only $200 a month. And when you talk about the cybersecurity, the criminal industry, I believe that they would rank, I believe, second or third in the total GDP if they were a country. So it's very lucrative. $200 is not much for a criminal to be able to use these. I think that if you're going to help to be defensible within for deepfakes, it's important to have that secondary communication channel. It's something that you should be talking about in your organization. I remember going so far back as to with phishing emails. If somebody is asking for money or through SMS, through text, I need to be able to call that person, or there's a possibility they may clone the SIM. So having some other form of communication to back channel and verify that, or having a code that changes every month to verify certain things. There's help desk tools in order to prevent people calling in for a change of password, where you can send a code back to the user, and then that person has to verify the code. It's like a two-factor for the call. So I think that in order to protect yourself from video deepfakes, audio deepfakes, having a secondary channel of communications out of band of the original method is very important. It should be something you're talking about in your organization.
And as everyone knows, technology is constantly advancing and stuff like that. So, I mean, that might be one aspect of it, what you do. It's definitely something that should be done, as having the secondary channels for authorization or authentication. But the other things to kind of look at is like, just-in-time administration access and things like that. So, securing your data, however, it needs to be secured based off of what you're trying to secure is part of it. But the biggest thing it comes down to still is educating people on looking for the things. It's like verbiage. Do they normally speak this way? Do they normally ask questions like this? Those are kind of things that you just have to start educating people to look out for, and not thinking that, oh, hey, I got a video request from my CEO for we're trying to do a company party. Give me 200 gift cards so I can give it out, something like that, right? So
Yep.
they're going to start utilizing those languages, but AI is going to keep on advancing and get better and understand, like, no one's going to speak this way. So how do I make this more real?
Yeah, I don't know how often our old CEO would ask for gift cards to our employees, and they check LinkedIn. They will look at methods for new employees to come in, and they will target those people. They get the message, hey, can you go buy $500 Best Buy gift cards? Our CEO is not going to ask you to do that. But you'd be surprised on people that would go out and do that. So you can't put it past. You got to make that communication in your organization. Have those back channels, and then have a list of everything that's an executive won't ask an employee. So We've seen it multiple times. It's surprising.
That's why we say education is key. And the biggest thing that you can help and start creating that path for is just like when you bring a new employee onto a company, you go through an orientation. And through orientation, you want to teach them kind of your business strategy, your business model, and how to operate within the company. Security, understanding security, educating them around security and what you're needing them to do, and understanding how, it's important. That needs to be an ongoing thing. I think even from my aspect of it, I have to be reminded on certain things of how I do things at work, because orientation was a long time ago. And when you go through orientation, you're thrown a lot of information in that short period of time. So it's hard to retain. So that's why we feel like it's great practice to treat everything almost like a reorientation. Reorientation helps, and I've loved having reorientation aspects of my journey in work, just because I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I do that. Just constant reminders, just allowing me to keep on improving or making sure I'm following the right path still.
Yeah, good stuff. Does anybody else have any questions, or and we certainly we take any emails after the fact, ready to send them to the marketing team, or we'll have communication channels on the slide deck afterward as well.
Well, it looks like we are at time, and yeah, no more questions. So I think we can wrap things up.
Cool. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar. It's appreciative that you hopped on, understand what we're trying to educate around, and just taking time out of your busy day. So we really appreciate.
Yep,
Right.
thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for Jason. Thanks, everyone.